Hi, this video is for anyone interested in moving to Dili, the capital of Timor-Leste. It will give you a bit of an idea about the housing, transport, shopping, internet and various other things that you need to consider before making the move. There are lots of accommodation options in Dili, from compounds with kind of townhouses to apartments to staying with local Timorese families. What I'll just give you an example of is where I've been living for the last year or so, which is kind of a mid-range kind of option. So you're probably looking at about $500 or $600 a month for a place like this. What it is an old Portuguese era kind of house, and there is one kind of behind and there's one kind of there. So our neighbours are kind of Korean missionaries, and then we've got a bit of a gate at the front. So it's pretty secure kind of setup, but it's not a kind of full-on compound. This is more kind of lots of Timorese houses around the area have kind of similar gating kind of setup. So this is the front room that also doubles as my study. Now, one thing to note is it has a ceiling fan, but very few houses would have air conditioning in kind of the living areas. They only really have air conditioning, and generally for kind of malae, in the bedrooms, which is pretty useful when it's quite hot to sleep at night. So heading down here, there's three kind of bedrooms off the hallway, which are pretty much as you'd expect a bedroom to look like. And then at the end, we've got our kitchen. So a few things to note out in the kitchen. Fridge freezer, like if you have the option, try and get one with a separate freezer unit to a fridge unit, because otherwise they tend to get iced up very easily because there's a lot of humidity in the air. We've got a very old school microwave. I'd say a smoothie maker, a blender is an essential purchase in Timor. You can get ovens. That's not probably standard fit out, but you can buy them for someone like me or an electronics store, and that's quite good for cooking. I think we're onto our 5th kettle now. So that relates to the electronics. So what I would note is we've got lots of cables and stuff around. And in this house, there are 3 different types of plugs, depending on which socket you're looking at in the wall. So what we brought out was a bunch of travel adapters with surge protection. Now, the electricity in Dili, certainly when we came out here in February 2024, for the first couple of months, there was power cuts every week. It's calmed down a bit since then, but there are power cuts, and also even when there is power, the power can fluctuate quite a lot. So a number of people have lost electronics because of that. So definitely get the surge protection, and having a travel adapter means that all plugs should fit. So that's why we've had 5 kettles, because they tend to blow when there's power fluctuations or other things going on. Also, actually, you can buy kind of all consumer products in Timor, but the quality, it tends to not be very good. They tend to be kind of cheap Chinese imports. If you can get something a bit more robust, this is a Westinghouse kind of American brand, that's kind of lasted better, but otherwise it's not uncommon for things to break relatively quickly, and you're not really able to return anything in Timor unless you do it within like 2 or 3 days of the purchase. So here's one of our fans in each of the room, kind of big fan to keep us cool. In terms of cooking, so a kind of a 2 gas hob off a bottle, that's pretty standard in kitchens. So a quick look in the bathroom. This is, Timorese would never have this, but this has been installed for the malae. It looks like there's a heater unit, but it's never worked. And to be honest, you just want a cold shower most of the time because it's pretty hot. This is definitely worth getting a few buckets to put emergency water supply in. Certainly here, our water comes off a pump, and so when the power goes off, the water goes off as well. Speaking about water, you can't drink the tap water, not recommended, but you can get these 19-litre bottles of water from your local kind of corner store. They're $10 for the bottle, and then it costs $1 to kind of switch them around whenever they've emptied. 2 inexpensive things that I would highly recommend that you get when you get here. One is mosquito nets. Make sure that all your windows and doors are covered, because particularly in the wet season, there are a lot of mosquitoes around. And actually in Dili, depending where you live, you can have mosquitoes all year round. So here we've got, can't necessarily see it, but there is glazed over here, and also on the back door, these things you can get from Basic for maybe $10 or so. So they're a very good purchase. And the other thing which is highly recommend is one of these, which is a mosquito racket, which again probably costs $8 or $10, and it makes killing the mosquitoes much easier and quite good fun. Timor-Leste very much has a cash culture, so you'll be spending a bit of time with these, getting some money out. You can generally withdraw up to about 900 US dollars a day in sort of 3 lots of $300. So the currency is the US dollar. Generally 10s and 20s are the most commonly used kind of notes, and then US coins are not accepted. They've got their own local Timorese coins with kind of from 5 cents upwards. So in terms of money, credit cards, almost nowhere takes credit cards, maybe some high-end accommodation and restaurants, but that's about it. Otherwise, it's very much cash. In terms of when you do use your card to get money out, MasterCard will only work in BNU cash machines, and it charges a 2.7% transaction fee. So Visa is the way forward here in Timor to get money out. If you're going to be here for a while, I'd recommend getting a local Timorese bank account. There's 3 or 4 banks, Timorese owned and also Indonesian owned, that are suitable. No one would move to Timor-Leste for the internet. It is slow. There are plans to improve this, but it may take some time to come through. Everything basically is done through your phone by a kind of hotspotting and using a mobile plan from one of the 3 providers. Starlink is on the cusp of being approved, so that may be an option soon, but kind of public Wi-Fi isn't really a thing here at all, and expect very slow kind of download speeds. The 3 mobile phone providers, there's different plans available. The unlimited plan is the most cost effective, but it tends to be capped. So once you've used a certain amount of data, the speed can slow down to a crawl. So I tend to use pay as you go, which is a bit more expensive perhaps. Certainly if you're streaming videos, it'd be expensive, but if you just use it for day-to-day internet, it is definitely more reliable in terms of the speed. Dili recently introduced these rubbish bins, which are a big improvement on just putting the rubbish on the side here. So basically whenever you want to empty rubbish, you take it from your house and you put it in the bin, and at some point it will get taken away. Now there is a limited recycling in Dili. So there's a place called Caltech, which is over in Komoro, and they pretty much recycle anything, but most of it you have to take to them. There's not a lot of kind of collection recycling facilities here. In terms of getting around Dili and around Timor-Leste, there's a few options. So one is a car. That are expensive, and to be honest, most volunteers would not have them, but certainly people who are here for longer in a full-time job would probably get a car. If you're just trying to get around Dili, you can do it using the microlets. Those are the local buses. Now they are very frequent and they are very cheap, 25 cents a trip. But they are very small for malae, and they are also very loud. Like the drivers do like to play their music quite loud, but it does have a very good coverage around Dili. So you can pretty much get anywhere in Dili on the microlets, although it might be a bit of a round route to get there because there's lots of one-way streets. Most kind of Timorese and few malae would either use a motorbike or a scooter. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to do this, that you get your license in your home country and then you convert it when you get to Dili. I think as a visitor you can use your overseas license for 3 months, but after that you need to have a Timorese license. Now getting a license, like passing the practical test as a malae, I've known 3 people who have done it, and they took them 3 or 4 attempts. Like, it is harder than one would think. They basically have like a figure of 8 course set up, but the cones are very close together. So I'd recommend get your license overseas and then bring it out when you get here. I'd also recommend getting your safety equipment from home. So this is one I bought at home, which you wouldn't be able to get in Timor. It's a better sort of safety standard. And also, actually, I think this kind of motocross helmet, very, very good for Timor, because you get a lot of airflow, your face is fully protected, but it just keeps you a bit cooler because it is quite hot being out on the bike. So if you are going to travel on 2 wheels, you've got kind of 2 options. One is a motorbike and the other one is a scooter. So in terms of pros and cons, so I bought a motorbike because I wanted to get out and about around Timor-Leste and explore the country, and a motorbike is the best way to do that. You've got the best clearance, and even though it's only 150cc, you can pretty much get anywhere on a bike, even more so than cars. Even 4-wheel drives can struggle with the state of Timorese roads. And the downside of a motorbike is they're manual, so particularly around Dili traffic, it's a lot of stop-start, low-speed traffic, so it can be a bit tricky on the motorbike, and they are a bit more expensive to buy than scooters. The other option, scooters, so they are super easy to ride. They're pretty much all automatics. They're really good for getting around Dili, but they don't have as much clearance. So you can basically get around on the sealed roads. So you can get up to Mabisi, you can get out to Balcao, you can go, you probably would struggle to get to Balabo because the road gets pretty bad in Bobonaro. So people do that, and people have ridden scooters out to Jacko Island. I don't think it's necessarily advisable because the roads roads are pretty bad, but it's definitely an option. They're a bit cheaper, they're a bit easier to ride, but they're not going to get you the places that a motorbike will get you. Now you can rent scooters and motorbikes, which is an option that a number of people do, but if you're going to be here a bit longer, it makes probably more financial sense to maybe buy your own, either second-hand or new. So as an example, I bought this new Yamaha 150cc and it cost me $2,700 US and a little bit more for the box at the back. But this has got me, I've been up to Baguia, which has got a terrible road. I've been out to Jacko. I've been all over Timor-Leste in that bike, and it's been fantastic. So personally, it's worked really well for me. Motorbikes, and particularly through Dili traffic, are not for everybody. So that is something to kind of consider, and you do kind of need to unlearn or do the opposite of what you might do at home in terms of driving. So things like roundabouts, it's not that the people on the roundabout have right of way, it tends to be the people coming into the roundabout that have right of way. And so there's a lot of things that take a bit of getting used to just around how the traffic works in Timor. But I haven't personally seen any accidents so far, and I've driven over 3,500 kilometers now on my bike, so I've seen a few things. So somehow seems to be relatively safe, but I do know there are accidents. I think particularly if you're riding at night is quite terrifying, and if you are riding during the wet season, because the roads can be slippery, and then if it's not sealed, they can be very puddly and potholey and quite challenging. So that's one of the things to consider, is also about whatever it's not like a lot of countries you can kind of go anywhere any time of year. Here the dry season is the time to go out and explore. In the wet season, parts of the country can be impassable. Another transport option is a bicycle. Now I have to say I've never seen an e-bike in Timor-Leste. There are definitely people on bikes that need a mountain bike given the state of the roads, but they're mainly used for recreational uses. So there are a number of mountain bike trails around Dili, particularly up into the hills in Dare and up even towards in Mubisi. So people do recreationally mountain bike, and there are some nice kind of relatively quiet roads that you can go up some big hills and come down some hills. In terms of using them day to day to get around Dili, I do know a few people who have done it. It isn't really attractive to me. Like at home, I would cycle everywhere pretty much. Here, there's the amount of traffic, and if you're in a bicycle, basically everybody's going to be overtaking you all the time, and so that just always feels a little bit uncomfortable, particularly given the Timorese tolerance for how close they get to you is maybe different to what you feel safe in terms of your tolerances for sort of near misses. So it is possible. It's also very hot, so it's quite hard work cycling around, so I wouldn't discount it entirely, but I would say definitely to think about some of the pros and cons of doing it. You can buy kind of average bikes in Timor, but if you've got something reasonably decent, you may need to bring one into the country. Dili has some pretty good private medical centres, including Stanford Clinic behind me and the Dili Medical Centre, generally with international doctors and pretty good facilities. Dili has a range of supermarkets. This is probably as good as it gets in terms of the fit out and the range. This is one of the 3 Mimart stores. There's also chains like Qualina that does a lot of imported stuff from Australia, which can be good for harder to find items. So you can't get any fresh milk in Timor-Leste, and cheese and yogurts can be a little bit challenging. Often what I find is I need to visit multiple stores to do my weekly shop. So particularly things like fruit, you have to go to the fruit markets. Vegetables, the range can be a bit variable. And then in terms of what they have in store, it varies quite a bit store by store. Coffee is one of Timor-Leste's main exports, so that is always available at a high quality. I have to say supermarkets outside Dili are pretty variable to non-existent. Cal has a couple of reasonable stores, but as soon as you start getting beyond there, your options are pretty slim. Now, learning I've come across whilst I've been in Timor-Leste is if you see something that's slightly unusual in the supermarket and you want it, just buy out the entire supply in the store, because you never know when you may see things again. For example, I saw in one of the Qualinas they had some cheddar cheese that has not come back after months. So you just basically, it's kind of like COVID times all the time here. If something's here, oats, there's various things, if they're imported, then the chances of them being regularly available can be quite slim. To finish this video at the wonderful fruit markets, which are down by the waterfront here in Dili, and where I go to several times a week to get passion fruit and bananas and other goodies for the blender. So 3 sources of information I would highly recommend beyond this video. First is to check out exploringtimor.com. That will give you lots of information about things to do and see in Timor-Leste and how to do them. The second is diliguide.com, which is written by an expat who's lived here for a number of years and gives you lots of useful information beyond this video about living and working in Timor-Leste. And the third is the various kind of Facebook groups for aimed at expats, of which Dili Expat brackets Timor-Leste is probably the best one, and there's also Dili Expat, there's a Dili Expat TL, but I think the first of those three is the one to go for.